The lemon bars were cooling on the rack when the text came in. I had just finished dusting them with powdered sugar, careful not to overdo it the way Dad hated. Just a whisper, he always said. I used his words in my head like a spell, hoping it would make the moment feel more connected. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and citrus, and the to-do list was nearly complete. Cooler packed, route printed, keys by the door. All that was left was to load the car in the morning and wait for their arrival. My phone buzzed. One sharp vibration on the counter. I dried my hands on the towel, looped at my waist, and picked it up expecting maybe a last-minute change from Mom, or a question from Chase about the pontoon rental. Instead, just this Ashley will take your place. She won't embarrass us. No hi, no punctuation, no explanation. I stared at it long enough for the screen to dim, then tapped it awake again, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something softer. They didn't. Embarrass them. As if I hadn't spent 3 months quietly organizing every detail of this trip. As if I hadn't chosen the cabin for its accessibility called the bait shop to make sure they still rented kid-sized rods or triple-checked that the upstairs shower had grab bars for Mom's knees. But Ashley with her perfect lipstick and polite laugh wouldn't embarrass them. The lemon bars sat untouched. I walked to the sink, washed the bowl, the whisk, the spatula. I wiped down the counter, swept the floor, and folded the towel in half. Everything clean, everything in order. Then I picked up the phone again and typed, "Noted." I didn't send anything else. No questions, no argument. Just one word and the cold hum of the message sliding out of my life. The timer for the last load of laundry buzzed in the other room. I didn't move right away. Just stood there, hands still damp, feeling something shift, not explode, not shatter. Just slide quietly out of place. And in that silence, I opened the freezer and began taking out the labeled meals I'd prepped for the trip one by one. I laid the lemon bars into a container one by one, as if I still had a reason to. The box would stay sealed, but the motions helped like packing a wound to keep it from bleeding. On the dining table sat the trip folder. I'd labeled it Lake Hartwell, Family Trip, July, printed in bold laminated just in case someone spilled iced tea on it. Inside the rental contract, emergency contacts, local hospital routes, a list of restaurants with vegetarian options for Chase, and a page titled Just for Fun with trivia games and boat day playlists. I'd even printed coloring sheets for the kids. None of it mattered now. None of it had ever been asked for. That thought hit harder than the message. I opened the freezer. Inside, Ziploc bags were marked in red Sharpie Ellie, GF Granola Dad, no mayo snack pack, boat day. I stared at the neat rows and couldn't remember which part I did because I wanted to and which part I did so they wouldn't have to. I'd booked the lake house in January before any of them even confirmed their dates. Paid the deposit from my own savings. When I sent them the link, Mom just said, "It's fine. Don't pick anything rustic. Your father's back can't take another saggy mattress." I'd called the host personally to ask about mattress firmness. I'd also ordered the shirts, navy blue with simple white lettering Brennan Family, Lake Life 2025. Sizes collected design approved shipped to my house. I'd planned to hand them out the first night with a silly toast, something lighthearted to mark that we all showed up, but I was the only one showing up, and they'd decided that was too much. It always had been, I think. I was too loud when I laughed, too specific when I planned, too sharp when I noticed the subtext in their silence. Ashley, on the other hand, fit in like a placeholder from a magazine page. Easy smile, softer voice, always agreeable. I'd watched her once fumble through organizing Thanksgiving pie orders. She cried when the bakery got the flavors wrong. I fixed it. Drove across town and bought 5 fresh ones at a different shop. Nobody remembered that part. I carried the labeled bags to the trash and dropped them in without ceremony. Then I walked back to the table, sat down, and opened the rental contract. My name was on every page. It wasn't just this trip. It never is just one thing. I remembered being 12, sitting in the back seat after a school performance, still in costume and full of excitement. I started recounting every line, every laugh the audience gave. Mom turned in her seat and said gently, "Honey, not everyone wants a full recap. Let others talk too." That was the first time I felt it, the slow nudge toward quiet. At 17, I called out a family friend for making a racist joke during dinner. The table froze. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Afterward, Mom pulled me aside and whispered, "We don't need to make things awkward." I was grounded for tone. Not words, just tone. When Chase brought Ashley home for the first time, she arrived with a bottle of wine and a delicate cardigan that matched her shoes. She asked thoughtful questions, complimented the centerpiece, and laughed at all the right moments. I watched Mom's face soften, watched how easily Ashley floated through the room without causing any disruption. Later that night, while washing dishes together, Mom said Ashley knows how to make people comfortable. It wasn't an insult, not directly, but I felt it land. Over the years, I noticed how Ashley became the one who got asked to say grace, the one Mom consulted about table decor, the one who somehow became the family's default for taste. When I suggested changing the holiday dinner format to accommodate Chase's kids' nap schedules, it was called rigid. When Ashley suggested a charcuterie board, it was so fun and modern. Little by little, she didn't just blend in, she replaced. And I let it happen. I thought if I could just be helpful enough, quiet enough, organized enough, they'd keep a spot for me. But the truth is, I was never meant to be visible. Only useful. I was the one who kept receipts, made backup plans, remembered birthdays and allergies, and how Uncle Pete didn't like cilantro. I was allowed to orbit, but never shine. Now I could see it clearly. I wasn't excluded for doing something wrong. I was excluded because I stopped making myself invisible. I closed the folder with my name on it and placed it back in the drawer. Then I reached for the lease documents. The lease was printed on cream stock paper with black ink and a faint watermark of pine trees along the border. I ran my finger over the Header Lake Hartwell Rental Agreement Brennan Party. My name appeared 4 times lessee emergency contact credit card on file and deposit authority. I hadn't thought much of it when I booked it. That's just what I did. I arranged things, quietly, ahead of time. I filled the empty spaces before anyone noticed they were there. But now I read each line with new eyes. I was the only name that mattered. Scrolling through my inbox, I found the boat rental confirmation, paid in full under my account. The security code for the dock locker, the life jacket sizes, even the waiver signatures, they were all mine. Chase never even logged in. Ashley had offered to coordinate snacks and then posted a poll on Instagram instead. They were expecting to walk into a curated weekend smile for pictures and let Ashley pass out the welcome bags like she'd packed them herself. I opened another drawer and pulled out the file from 2 years ago. After Dad's second scare, the one he downplayed as just dehydration, he'd called me over to the house one afternoon. Said he needed a second set of eyes on something. He didn't talk much, just handed me papers and a pen. "Just in case anything ever happens to me," he said, "you know how to keep things steady." I signed where he told me to. We never spoke of it again. Now the deed sat in my lap with both our names listed, Calvin Brennan and Calla Brennan joint ownership, right of survivorship. I read it twice. They assumed I'd take care of the planning, the payment, the paperwork, and then disappear quietly from the picture, just like always. They thought I'd still show up with sunscreen and pre-cut fruit even after they erased me. But this time I wouldn't hand over what I built. I slipped the deed back into its envelope and set it next to the rental folder. Then I picked up my phone and opened the booking app. At 8:12 a.m., my phone lit up with Mom's name. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was sharp-clipped. "Why isn't the code working for the rental?" I kept my tone even. "Because there's no reservation under your name." Or Ashley's. A pause. I could almost hear her blinking through the confusion. "I don't understand," she said. "You booked it. You confirmed. I saw the emails." "Yes," I said. "I did." "Then what's going on?" Her voice rose. Not panic yet, but close. "I canceled the reservation 3 days ago." Another silence, longer this time. Then a single question spoken low, almost like a dare. "What did you do?" I let the words land before I replied. "This is only the beginning." I ended the call before she could respond. I stood by the kitchen window watching the soft breeze move the trees, the same way I had imagined watching the lake shimmer behind them, Somewhere across town, they were probably standing on the gravel driveway in front of the locked cabin bags at their feet, sun hats in hand, still waiting for a weekend that no longer belonged to them. The group chat lit up next. First Chase, then Ashley. I didn't read them. Instead, I picked up my coffee, walked to the porch, and sat on the swing I'd sanded and stained last summer. I'd always believed being dependable meant staying available no matter how many times I was dismissed or forgotten. I thought being the one who handled things meant something close to love. But this didn't feel like love. This felt like a script they were used to me playing, one where I kept everything running just so they could enjoy the show. Without me, the lights didn't come on. Without me, the stage stayed dark. I opened the second message from Mom. Just 3 words. We need answers. I didn't reply. Not yet. Maybe not at all, because for once they were going to have to find their own way. They were going to have to sit with their confusion, their inconvenience, their suddenly unraveling plans. Plans I used to tie together like thread around a gift no one thanked me for. I took a sip of my coffee and turned off my phone. By noon, the messages came in like slow drips from a leaking faucet. Each one a variation of confusion dressed as concern. Ashley was first. Must be a system error. You booked it, right? I stared at it for a moment, then typed, I trust the owner handled it. I'm no longer involved. No emoji. No explanation. Just enough. She didn't reply. A little while later, a string of missed calls from Chase. Then one connected. Hey, he said too casually. Just wanted to check in. I said nothing, waiting. So, Ashley's kind of upset. He continued. She thinks maybe the host got confused, and Mom's overwhelmed. She had to sit in the car with Dad while we called around trying to find a room. There's a sports tournament or something, so everywhere's full. I kept my voice level. That sounds frustrating. There was a long pause, like he was hoping I'd jump in, offer a solution call, a contact, pull a favor. That's how it always went. But I didn't. You booked everything, he said, his tone quieter. Did something happen between you and Mom? I thought about the lemon bars, the shirts, the lists, the message. I just decided not to participate in something I wasn't invited to, I said. He cleared his throat. She didn't mean it that way, Calla. She just thought maybe Ashley could help carry the weight. You tend to take everything on. I didn't respond to that, because it wasn't about the weight. It was about the assumption that I'd always carry it without being seen. Look, he tried again. Can you just tell us the name of the rental? Maybe we can call directly, see if it's still available. I let him sit in the silence a second longer, then said, You'll figure something out. You always do when I'm not there to fix it. He exhaled through his nose, something between a laugh and a sigh. You sound different. Maybe I am. After we hung up, I made lunch and ate it outside. No phone, no to-do list in sight. Just me and the stillness I used to mistake for loneliness, now reintroduced as peace. Later that afternoon, I boxed up the leftover lemon bars and brought them to my neighbor across the street. She'd once mentioned loving citrus. She opened the door with a surprised smile. Special occasion? Not really, I said. Just had some extras I didn't want to waste. She thanked me and reached for the box. You always think of others. I smiled. Not always. And as I walked back to my porch, I saw the unopened group chat light up again. I spent the weekend 2 towns over in a guest cottage behind my friend Nadine's house. She was out of town with her husband, and the place was quiet except for the soft creak of pine branches brushing the windows and the occasional bark of her neighbor's dog. From the back deck, I could still see the lake in the distance, gray and rippling beneath a bruised sky. It rained most of Saturday. I watched the storm move over the water, heavy and slow, like something remembering how to leave. My phone stayed off most of the time, but Sunday afternoon, curiosity won. There was a text from Chase. They miss you. That was it. No apology, no context. Just that. I sat with it for a while before opening my journal. Missing someone you edited out of your plans, I wrote. That's not grief. That's consequence. I didn't need to hit send for it to count. In the quiet that followed, I made tea and reread the lease agreement for the lake house. The cancellation fee was non-refundable. I'd paid it without hesitation. Not for revenge, but to reclaim the part of me that always covered their tracks while they wandered through life without maps. I thought of Mom, probably still convinced this was about a miscommunication, Ashley rehearsing explanations for photos that would never be posted, and Dad saying nothing at all, as he always did. I used to wonder what they'd do without me. Now I didn't need to. That night I slept better than I had in months, and when I woke the next morning, the only sound was the wind through the trees and the undeniable quiet of having nothing left to prove. When I got home, the first thing I did was open the hallway closet, the one with bins labeled seasonal and misc, and family. I pulled down the box marked reunion stuff, half filled with old matching shirts, unused banners, and a deflated beach ball from 2 summers ago. I sorted through it slowly. The shirts were soft from wear, each one a different version of the same message: togetherness, unity, tradition. I held one against my chest for a second, then folded it neatly and set it in the donation pile. By noon, 2 bags sat by the door. I didn't second-guess a single item. After lunch, I opened my laptop and booked a cabin in the Olympic Peninsula. 3 weeks from now. No shared itinerary, no group chat. Just me, a trail map, and whatever weather waited on the coast. Then I opened a fresh notebook and wrote across the top of the first page, "Things that are just for me." Under it, I listed 3 things to start. The pen hovered for a moment before I added a fourth 4, not explaining why I need space. Somewhere downstairs, the dryer buzzed. I let it go. The world could wait. In the living room, I rearranged a few framed photos. Took down the one from that lake trip 5 years ago, the one where I was behind the camera while everyone else smiled. I replaced it with a picture Nadine had taken of me last fall. I was mid-laugh holding a thermos wearing a jacket I loved. I looked at it for a long time. Then I stepped back, sat down, and let the room settle around me, not like a stage waiting to be filled, but like a place I finally claimed. And on the next page of the notebook, I began to write again,